Can you guys believe it's been almost 3 months since the release of the Mavic 3? Now I wanted to get a review out a little bit sooner, but that didn't happen. So here I am making a 3-month review where we're at and cover some questions as far as the things that I liked about it, my experience with it, things that I disliked about it, and hopefully answer the question for you guys if this drone is the right one for you. So with that being said, let's begin. So in this video, we're not going to be spending a ton of time talking about all of the detailed specs. We know it's in the Mavic 3, but I want to provide you guys my real world experience and how I've been using this drone, how well it's performed, and things of that nature. So starting off with the drone, this is probably one of my most favorite designs of an aircraft. Even if the aircraft does look like it skipped leg day, you'll know what I'm talking about as soon as you see the legs. It's definitely well designed. It's a very nice looking drone. You've got a nice like dark slate gray color to it. It's very well built and sturdy. The body is a nice hard plastic, and you can see here with the wheel, or with not the wheels, with the arms, they look very flimsy, but they are in fact very solid, and I'm impressed with that as well. As far as cooling, you've got tons of different cooling events all about it. You've got one in the front, you've got one in the back, you've got a couple on the side, and if you actually remove the battery, it might be a little bit hard to see, but there's some mesh just behind the gimbal that allows some airflow to flow either across the battery or the underside of that circuit board to help keep it cool. Now, I have the non-Cine model, so in this case I've got the USB-C port, which also should be on the Cine model, but I've also got the micro SD card slot as well. So those are really nice right there in the back. Then of course you've got the battery that slides in on the back. Other things to note is you've got not one but 2 LED lights on the bottom side of it here that help the vision sensor. If you're below 15 feet, those will automatically kick on to aid in the landing or the stableness of the drone. I really enjoyed those on the Air 2 and the Air 2S, and it's nice to see that we've got the 2 of them there now, which makes it actually really fun if you want to do some nighttime flying or maybe some nighttime long exposure photography. It's really fun to turn those on manually, kind of zip around and get some light streaks throughout the sky. The vision sensors, or the obstacle avoidance sensors, are very well placed and aesthetically pleasing. They don't look, they look crazy, but they're nice and they work really well, and they're not like over the top. Other things that I enjoy are on the front side of the front legs, or sorry, on the back side of the front legs, we've got the little rubber stoppers that help keep the legs from scratching the body, which is really nice. We've got the black motor covers, and then of course we've got these smoked LED lenses, which are really nice to have. And then of course we've got the black propellers with the orange like rubber tips, which is designed to help reduce the noise of the propeller. So overall, a beautifully designed aircraft. And like I said, it's definitely one of my favorite styles. Now on top of that, when you fold up the drone, they also included a really nice, just a gimbal cover, which is nice. It helps keep of course, the gimbal protected and the lens protected, but it also keeps the propellers in check. And honestly, it looks like a bondage strap. Let's just be honest. Let's just call it what it is. I think DJI knew what they were doing when they designed that, but nothing like a nice leather strap to help keep everything restrained. Well, maybe. Now, in terms of performance, I want to break this into 3 different categories because I believe each one has their pros and cons. First one I want to break into is the flight control, how well the drone itself performed in flight scenarios. The second being the videography or the cinematography aspect of it. And then I love to use drones as photography, so I want to break that into its own separate section just because, like I said, there's definitely some pros and cons to each one of these, and I think breaking them down would be the best way to approach it. So starting off with the overall flight design here, it's exactly what you would expect from a DJI premium product. The drone does exactly what you tell it to do with rock solid stability. It's got great range and signal reliability, and the battery life is pretty incredible. At times I felt like the drone was in the air forever, and after 3 batteries, I almost felt like there was too much battery because it just lasted forever. There's tons of different time between all 3 batteries. If you get the Fly More combo, you're looking at over almost close to 2 hours worth of flight time, which is just incredible when you're trying to get the shots that you need to. So it's definitely a good problem to have. I was, like I said, getting about 40 minutes per battery on average, even when I was up in Alaska with single digit and sometimes a below zero temperature rating. The drone just performed and just did exactly what it was supposed to do. So now let's talk a little bit about the video or the footage that comes out of this thing. The image is beautiful, it's crisp, it's clean, and it looks great straight out of the box. Now, one thing to note, or a few things to note I should say, is we still are locked down to the 4K at up to 60 frames per second if you want to use any of the focus track features, so Active Track 5.0, the spotlight, and also the point of interest. You can have a max of 4K at up to 60 frames. The drone does shoot up to 5.1K video, but again, that's all gonna be manual control, as you won't be able to use those features. You also won't be able to use those features if you're shooting in a D-Log format. And when you're shooting in D-Log, you are locked to either a 400 or an 800 ISO. This was kind of new to me because on the Mavic Air 2S or the Air 2S, I was able to choose the entire ISO range. So I did some research, come to find out the reason why they do that is those two ISOs are what give the most dynamic range when it comes to shooting in D-Log format. So make sure that you bring your ND filters along and make sure that you plan your shots and your ND filter usage accordingly. At least for now, that may change in the future. Now, in December, we received a firmware update that gave us most of the features that we expected to have in this drone on launch. So the Active Track 5.0, the spotlight, and the point of interest. And most of these work really well with a few setbacks. The point of interest and the spotlight seem to have issues remaining locked on a subject no matter if the light was adequate or inadequate. I had some issues with it kind of losing the subject and overall wouldn't perform, I think, as best as it could. So hopefully we see a future update that includes those. Now, Active Track 5.0. This worked well for the most part. And what I mean by that is when I was shooting through some trees and tracking a vehicle through some trees, it did really well, especially in some pretty harsh lighting. It was pretty dark. There was a lot of uneven lighting. It did really well. It didn't hit any branches or anything like that, which is really nice. However, on the flip side of that, when I was trying to track the truck through Spanish Fork Canyon, it seemed to have some issues when I would want to change its rotation because it has the omnidirectional sensing that you can now track it on in a 360-degree radius. And as I was choosing different places for the drone to move to track, whether I wanted it to track in front of me or behind me or whatever, it seemed to not want to adjust until I would bring the vehicle to a stop, give it a second, it then would readjust, or I had to manually move the joystick in order to kind of kickstart it and let it move into position. So I definitely think the firmware update could use some updates or some performance tweaks in order to get all of those focus track features to work the way that they should. Now let's talk a little bit about the still images or photography capabilities of the Mavic 3. I probably like shooting photos more than I like shooting video. And one of the biggest deciding factors of upgrading to the Mavic 3 was the variable aperture. I didn't have that on the Air 2S. I really wanted that, and just like in video, using that variable aperture will allow you to change the depth of the field and get a completely different look of images, and I wanted to have more tools that I could use to control the outcome of that photo. Now, the drone has the capability of shooting from an ISO of 100 all the way up to 6400. Out of the box, the images look great, even punching into 100%. You can see a little bit of loss, but overall the image is very usable and I'm extremely happy with the performance of the photos. At 6400 ISO, you do see a little bit of detail loss and as well as some color loss, but it isn't anything that is over the top or unusable. So like I said, I'm extremely happy with how the photos turn out using the Mavic 3, and I'm excited to use it to shoot more photos. So just a few final thoughts on the overall performance of the drone. Across the board, I'm extremely happy with the Mavic 3. There are some caveats, but I wouldn't consider any of these a deal breaker for if you're looking to upgrade to the Mavic 3. I've loved it, it's been great. I definitely think the firmware update that they released in December was rushed because a lot of these features should have been released with the launch of the drone. People are paying anywhere between $2,100 and $5,000 US, and we didn't get a lot of these features upon launch, which tells me that they weren't ready, but DJI wanted to rush the drone out. So I hope that DJI watches these videos. I hope that they see that these firmware updates need some more tweaking, and I hope we have a nice juicy firmware update on the horizon in order to fix some of these issues, as well as give us some of the other features that we're still missing, like quick shots and like panoramic shooting modes. We still don't have those. And even though I don't use those very often, I paid for them and I would still like to have them. So hopefully we've got a new update coming soon. That is gonna wrap up this video. I hope you guys liked it. Let me know if I missed anything. Let me know what you guys think about this drone. If you have firsthand experience, reach out to me down in the comments below. Of course, we've got a merch store. Shop.helpcloud.com has a lot of cool merch on there. Hoodies, like zipper hoodies, regular hoodies, hats, all sorts of stuff. So be sure to check that out if that is something that you're interested in. But yeah, that is again, wrap up this review. Let me know what you guys think. Thanks for watching and we'll see you on the next one. Peace.